All right, here we go. We're up to 12. Yeah, I think people forgot from when we did this 2 years ago. What time is it? All right, give it a few more minutes and then we'll start. Yes. Okay. Hi, everybody. We're just waiting a few more minutes before we start. Huh. Oh, okay. Okay, got a lot of names I don't recognize on here, so I'm glad people have decided to find out how to vote in June. All right, Kevin, I think I will start. Hi, I'm Sherry Weiner. I am co-chair of Community Board 8's Voting Reform and Charter Change Task Force. My co-chair, Ed Herzog, probably may be joining us a little later, but not going to start. So especially since there are so many people who probably have never been on one of our Zoom calls before, Kevin, will you please give the instructions?
Welcome. If this is your first time joining us virtually, you will notice that you are currently muted and everyone will remain muted throughout the meeting except for the committee co-chairs, Ed and Sherry, and any presenters as we move through the agenda. As we move through the agenda, the co-chairs will call on members of the public wishing to speak. You can participate by going to the react icon on your device and pressing the raise hand button, not the wave or thumbs up, as those will disappear. Only press it once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in on the phone, it is *9 to raise hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once the co-chairs call on you. The chat is available for technical support only to help with Zoom software problems, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. They will not see the chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you need to go to the participants section where you will find the raise hand feature there. Please do not raise your actual hand or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you. Chat me, I'm here for support. Thank you.
Our speaker, Susan Lerner, has graciously agreed to take questions and answers. So once her presentation is over, since this is live, if you follow Kevin's instructions, we'll be happy to take your questions. Okay, so what are we doing here tonight? Well, let me give you a little history of ranked choice voting. If you can remember, we've done this twice before. In 2019, the Charter Review Commission, and we'll actually be talking the second part of the program about charter review. There's a new charter study going on, and we're going to talk about that after we talk about ranked choice voting. But anyway, in 2019, the Charter Review Commission recommended ranked choice voting. It was pretty popular at that time. I think California had it. Susan can talk to us about that. And it was put on the ballot before the voters, and it was approved by 75% of the vote, which is really, interesting. So it's been implemented. It was used in 2021, and it was used again in 2023. So there've been 2 elections. So I know we've talked about maybe we want to get rid of it, but the commentary I read is that they don't feel it's really been around long enough to evaluate it. So we're stuck with ranked choice voting. An interesting comment in the 23 election, in a race with 3 candidates, 61% of the voters ranked the candidates. That's what we're going to be doing, is ranking candidates. When they were 4%, 67% did. And when they got down to 2, there was 37%. So if you look at our mayoral campaign now, we got a lot of people who are running. Okay, so we use ranked choice voting in primaries only in New York City. We're not talking about the rest of the state. So the June primary is on June 24th. And you will have the chance to rank candidates for mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. Early voting for the June primary election is June 14th to the 22nd. And just to give you a little heads up, the general election will be on November 4th, and with early voting, October 25th to November 2nd. Early voting for the June primary is June 14th to the 22nd. And also remember that where you vote for early voting may not be your regular voting place. So make sure you know that. And of course, in New York, there is a closed primary system, which means you have to be registered in a particular party. You have to be registered as a Democrat or a Republican to vote in the primary. One of the suggestions in the current Charter Change Commission is to go to an open primary system where everybody would vote. But as of this year in June, you can vote in the Democratic primary if you register as a Democrat, and the Republican primary if you're registered as a Republican. Okay, so let's get started on our program. I'm very pleased to introduce Susan Lerner. She is Executive Director of Common Cause New York. She's held that position since December 2007, leading the organization's efforts in advocating for voting rights, election reform, campaign finance, transparency, redistricting, and government ethics across New York State. We had asked Susan to explain ranked choice voting to us before the 2023 election. And she did such a tremendous job and was so popular that when I told people we were doing ranked choice voting, they said, get that lady back who we had before. So we did invite Susan to join us. And we're so happy that she's going to teach us how to vote in the primary coming up. So Susan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. But obviously, I didn't do a good enough job because you're ready to tank ranked choice voting, which is really surprising given how popular it is and how well it's worked for New York City voters. But we'll talk about how it actually has been used by New York City voters in our presentation. I'm Susan Lerner. Sorry, I'm suffering from a bit of a cold. I'm the Executive Director of Common Cause New York, and I'm the board chair for Rank the Vote NYC, an organization that was formed in 2019 to help bring ranked choice voting to New York City. So how do we get here? In 2009, some of you may recall there was a costly, low turnout runoff election for public advocate and for comptroller. It cost $11 million. Very, very few people turned out to vote, and that started a debate over the use of runoff elections, whether it was really the way to solve some of the challenges that we have that come from our privileged position that in many of our city races, there are multiple candidates. That's a positive impact of our public financing system combined with term limits. But it's not unusual for some of us to be facing 6 or sometimes 12 or 13 candidates running for the same city council office. And of course, we know often a large number of mayoral candidates as well. So in 2010, City Council member Gail Brewer introduced the first ranked choice voting bill into the city charter. And in that same year, or rather, I'm sorry, into the council. In that same year, the Charter Revision Commission in 2010 explored RCV for local elections, but felt that more time was needed. There needed to be more discussion. The community needed to become more familiar with the concept. 2018, another Charter Revision Commission brought in experts to testify about ranked choice voting, took community testimony about ranked choice voting, and came very close to putting it on the ballot, but identified it as an important issue that they felt required more study and discussion for the next Charter Revision Commission, which had already been appointed and was set to take place in 2019. And that Charter Revision Commission, after extensive testimony, both from experts and from voters across the city in all 5 of the boroughs, put ranked choice voting on the ballot for New York voters to decide whether they wanted to expand their power and their choice at the ballot by adopting a ranked choice voting system, which, as Sherry has pointed out, in our city only is used for primaries. And as the reason why we recommended that it only be used for the primary is because of the way in which New York State handles fusion voting. In a general election, it's possible for a candidate to appear more than once for the same office on the ballot. And we and voter information specialists felt that it would be very confusing to try and educate voters about ranked choice voting when you have the same voter in multiple positions on the ballot. Because as we'll talk about later, with ranked choice voting, you don't want to rank the same person multiple times. You want to use up all of your power with different candidates. So in 2019, the Charter Revision Commission put RCV for primaries before the New York City voters, and it passed with nearly 75% of the vote. And on June 2021, New York City held its first local primary where city council, borough president, public advocate, comptroller, and mayor were all elected through the ranked choice voting election process. Let's see here. Why is this not? There we go. So how does it operate in New York City? We no longer spend time and money on runoffs. With a ranked choice system as we use it here in New York City, candidates will need to win with at least 50% plus 1 of the vote. Voters will now have the option to rank up to 5 candidates, and that includes a write-in if they choose to rank and if they choose to add a write-in. And if only less than 2 on the same ballot then voting is a one-option election. You can't, there's no point in ranking when you have two. To have a ranked choice voting election, you have to have 3 or more candidates on the ballot, and then that gives you, the voter, more power and more choice. So a little short explanation. Oops, no need to go through it again. So what does this mean for, hold on one second. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what does this mean for election night? What this means on election night is, like always, the Board of Elections will release unofficial election night results. However, the results will be released as follows. The total number of ballots that are marked, that marked a candidate as ranked number 1 will be identified. If there's no majority winner, that is, if no one running in a ranked choice voting contest gets more than 50% plus 1 of the vote, the results will be announced with a vote redistribution round by round, but not on that first night. On that first night, what you learn is everybody who got a number 1 ranking, what the initial rankings were in the first round. And the reason for that is because we do not have all of the ballots on election night, because we don't have the affidavit and the absentee ballots. The early voting, absentee, and affidavit, and now vote by mail ballots will all be counted the way they usually are, which means that on election night now, with recent changes in the law, early voting and validated absentee ballots received before the end of early voting will be included in the election night results. So that means the first round that we see on election night has a fairly high percentage of the total ballots, but not all of them, because happily, under our state law, the vote by mail and absentee ballots are allowed to be received by the Board of Elections for 7 days after Election Day, so long as they are postmarked by Election Day. And as we know, sometimes the Postal Service takes a while. So we don't want to unfairly disenfranchise an eligible ballot simply because the post office was slow. So the Board of Elections waits until it has all of the ballots in hand. It has a smaller number of affidavit and absentee ballots 1 week after the election. So they're able to validate those votes pretty quickly, but they will run a interim round 1 week after the election. It may not include all of the absentee and affidavit ballots, but it will have more ballots than the ones that were counted on election night. And they will release all of the rounds for that interim running of the ranked choice voting ballots. But we have to wait for the final results until all of the absentee, vote by mail, and affidavit ballots have been validated and counted, at which point the board will then run all of the rounds and announce the final winners. So what is ranked choice voting? The first choice is the candidate that you love, the candidate you are passionate about, the candidate that you feel, no matter what else might be going on, this is the person you think is best suited for the office. The second choice is the candidate you like. The third or fourth choice are the candidates you like slightly less. And the fifth choice is the candidate, well, if nobody else were available, this candidate would do. In order to gain the full benefit of ranked choice voting, we urge voters to rank as many voters as they care about. Now, I'm often asked, well, how can I assure that I use ranking in a way that will influence the results, and what's the special secret to influencing it or manipulating it? There is no way to do that with ranked choice voting. It really is as simple as choose the candidate you love. And don't worry about, is this somebody who could win? Is there somebody who I'm told is more popular? You don't have to worry about wasting your vote. You don't have to worry about the vote being split between 2 or 3 candidates who have similar positions, who might come from the same ethnic community. Because with ranked choice voting, you get to rank the candidates you really care about. And this is similar to what your ballot ends up looking like, where all of the candidates for a particular office are gathered together. It's in a grid form, and you are then able to fill in your ranked choices. So going back a little bit, again, it's up to you. You don't have to fill in all 5 choices. You can vote for one if you want to, but you are not taking the full benefit of ranked choice voting. You are not getting the full power of the choices that ranked choice voting gives you if you rank only one. And your vote is most powerful if you rank a full 5, because that way, if your first choice, the candidate you really care about, is eliminated before the final round, your vote transfers to your second or third choice who's still in the running. And that gives your vote more voice, it gives you more choice, and it allows you to influence the final result. And again, to vote for the candidate you care the most about, irrespective of whether you're told they have a chance or not. So I'm going to pull up a QR code, which I urge people, take out your phones, open up your camera, and hold it up to the screen so that the QR code is picked up by your camera, and it is going to take you to a ranked choice voting contest. So if you are having trouble, indicate in the Q&A so people can let me know. But if you can indeed access the ranked choice voting contest, it's the easiest way to see how ranked choice voting works. Because one, you're able to rank your choices. This is your favorite singer. And this little app on your phone, it's actually a mobile website, will then run the rounds. And you can see how the rounds are influenced as different people make different choices. So I'm going to let you run that little test and give you an opportunity to see how ranked choice voting works and how the calculations are made as well. I should say that the process of running the rounds is done by computer. We're often asked, well, how long is that going to take? Oh my God, ranked choice voting, is it going to slow things down? It does not slow anything down. The delay in the final results is related to how long it takes to receive and validate the vote by mail and absentee and affidavit ballots. Once all of the ballots are in hand, it takes no more than a minute or two to load each race individually into the tabulator. And the computer does what computers do, which is to analyze a large amount of data very quickly. And you get the result for each race in a matter of minutes. So you have to run each race individually. And yes, there are a certain number of races, but it rarely takes more than a few hours. And then you have all of the results, which will be released to the public by the Board of Elections as they run them, with a full recitation of the transfer of the votes from each round to round. So you can see, okay, Candidate D was eliminated because they had the fewest votes. All of the second choices, 2/3 of the second choices from candidate D went to candidate B, and 1/3 of those choices went to candidate A. So ranked choice voting does not slow down the process. It doesn't delay the results. It simply gives your voice more power and more choices. So what we have seen when we look back at 2021 is that people used RCV very, very well. 87% of voters ranked 2 or more candidates when they were voting for mayor in the 2021 primary. And almost 75% of primary voters ranked all three candidates. And what we see is not only does ranked choice voting appeal to the voters who are trying to make sense of sometimes crowded fields and give them an incentive to spend more time researching the candidates because they know that they can make a ranked choice. What we also see is that ranked choice voting changes the way in which candidates campaign. The successful candidate in a ranked choice voting campaign changes the way in which they campaign in 2 really important ways. The successful candidate in a ranked choice voting contest has to appeal to more than just their original base. In our traditional races, what we call first past the post or winner take all races, the candidates are told, oh, don't waste time on that community over there. They don't know you. They're not going to vote for you. They don't like you. Let's stick with the community that already knows you. Let's spend a lot of time with them. Let's turn out every single voter we can in that community and ignore the communities where you aren't already known. That's a losing strategy with ranked choice voting, because what you want as a candidate in ranked choice voting, if you're not going to be the voter's number 1, you want to be their number 2 or 3, because it is very possible to come from a second or third position with ranked choice voting, because the process of ranked choice voting is designed to allow a candidate to build a consensus majority, so that we have candidates who are much more likely to be the choice of a majority of the voters, maybe not their first choice, but their second or third, so that we're much less likely to see a winner who wins with, as we've seen in various mayoral races, maybe 37 or 42% of the vote. You accumulate a broad base of support. And the way you do that as a candidate is by going out and talking to all of the different communities in your jurisdiction, not just concentrating on your base, but going to the ones that you didn't know before and saying, hey, I would like to know what your community is concerned about. I would like to get your vote. And if I'm not going to be your number 1, I'd like to be your number 2. So you have to spend more time appealing to more voters, and campaigns spend time talking to more voters, because in a classic campaign, if any of you have done any campaign work, your first question is, have you already made up your mind? Do you already support my candidate? Great, I'm so glad. Check them off the list. We'll be back to you. If the person says, no, I've already made up my mind, I'm not voting for your candidate, that's the end of the conversation. You check them off the list. You say, no, don't bother with them. In a ranked choice voting campaign, if you're told, well, you know, I've already made up my mind, I like Joe, I'm not going to vote for Mary, and you are campaigning for Mary, it's the beginning of a conversation, not the end. At that point, you say, oh, that's really interesting. I'm glad you've researched the candidates. What about Joe do you really like? Oh, it's Joe's housing policies that really turn you on. Well, you know, Mary also has a very similar position on housing. I'd like to give you some information about her housing position. And we have a ranked choice voting primary. You can rank Joe number 1, but I'd really like you to consider ranking Mary number 2, because their positions on housing are actually quite similar. That's a very different conversation. And it's providing the voter with a very different kind of information. The other thing that ranked choice voting does is it disincentivizes the candidates who attack each other. Because again, if your entire approach is negative, chances are you're not going to be ranked 2 or 3. And you want to be in the top 3 as a candidate. If you can't be number 1, you want to be 2 or 3. So ranked choice voting, we believe, provides some really interesting benefits for voters and for our general elections in our democracy. It's used in New York City in our primaries and in our special elections. And it really, we believe, helps voters become more informed about the candidates. So just to, I think, alleviate some misinformation or lack of information about how ranked choice voting was actually used. This is a map that the CUNY Mapping Center put together, where they did an analysis of the voter rolls, the cast vote records, and they looked by election district at the mayoral primary. And the gradations of color show you how many voters in each election district had ranked at least 2 candidates. On the CUNY website, you actually can see this map in an interactive form that shows you how the specific districts went through the rounds using ranked choice voting. But as you can see, there's a pretty even distribution of a significant number of voters who were using ranked choice voting in the mayoral primary in 2021. Same thing with the city council districts. Again, a pretty even distribution of people who are ranking at least 2 candidates for city council. And as I said, we're in the 80 percentiles when we are looking at voters who actually ranked at least 2. And we get to close to a majority of people who ranked up to 5. So New York City voters, even in the first go round, used ranked choice voting and used it very, very well. So as I was saying, this goes to who you have to appeal to, right? You're never talking in the classic old way. You're not talking to anybody who's already told you that they're not going to vote for you. You're only looking at your own base supporters. And of course, you're trying for the folks who are undecided in the middle. And I don't know why my computer is unhappy, but there you go. And so this is exactly what we help candidates and campaigns to understand they should not be doing right now. The new way is the candidate is looking to talk to as many communities and garner as many 1, 2, and 3 votes as possible. And again, so that allows the candidate to accumulate a majority over a consensus building process, which is what ranked choice voting is all about. So voter education is not just something that happens casually. It's not just Rank the Vote NYC. It's not just our partners, not just the community board, though we certainly appreciate this opportunity. It's a team effort. The Campaign Finance Board, under the charter, has the primary responsibility for voter education and outreach in 2025 and in every primary going forward. The Board of Elections is going to provide voter information as well. So you'll be receiving a voter guide in the mail. It will have at least 2 pages devoted to ranked choice voting to be sure that you understand how to use it. There will be signs and instructions in the polling place when you go to cast your ballot. If you go in person, there are instructions on the ballot when you receive your ballot by mail. So again, the government is doing its part to let us know about ranked choice voting. but voter education by trade associations, community voter-based organizations is invaluable. And that's why I'm really grateful that the community board invited me to speak with you today, because the more that people hear about ranked choice voting, the more they understand that this is a simple, straightforward process. It doesn't encourage you to try and double guess or try and game the system, but just to go with your gut, go with the candidates you really care about, and empower your vote with ranked choice voting. So the last day to register to vote is June 14th for the primary. Early voting for the primary will take place on the 14th through the 22nd, and primary day itself is Tuesday, June 24th. And if you're paying attention, you will see that there is a nice overlap between the last day to register and the first day for early voting for the primary. And that's what we call a golden day. So even if you miss the June 4th deadline, let's say you've got a college student coming home who wants to register to vote here in New York City. They weren't around on June 4th, and they didn't get around to registering in advance. They can go to an early voting location on June the 14th. They can register right there, and they can fill out an affidavit ballot. And once the Board of Elections, after the election, ascertains that they are eligible to vote and to be registered, the board will register them and then will cast that affidavit ballot. So that's another reform that we've managed to get through in state law to really open up access to the ballot. So I urge everybody to spend the time learning about the candidates, finding out their positions, and talking with friends and family to figure out who are your top choices. At a minimum, go for your top 3. And if you can, I recommend voting for ranking a full 5. Just like we rank our favorite ice cream flavors, we can rank our candidates. So thank you.
That's a great way to think about it, Susan. All right, we have a couple of questions. Let me start with Craig. Is this the Craig from the community board or another Craig? Kevin, do you see Craig?
Greg, I think you have 2 accounts or something.
I
You're
think he
signed in.
came on. Well, give him let's hear him speak once and then we'll go to other people.
Yeah, hi. Are we there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Can you
we
hear me?
can.
Hi, yes. Okay. So I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
Let's say I don't like a candidate. Is it better to put them 5 or just to not put them on at all?
Not put them on
Because
at
if
all.
they get not put,
Not put
okay.
them on at all. Do not vote for a candidate you really don't want to see in office.
Okay.
Do not vote for a candidate you do not want to see in office,
They get
right?
those number
You
5s.
should
and
only
if it
pick
adds to
candidates
them.
you can live with.
Okay, great. That's great. Okay. Then the other is when you're doing this, the voting and the tabulating, it seems that you guys are advocating for 16-year-olds to vote. Is that still the case?
It is one of the things which is the Let New York Vote Coalition supports, yes.
It does. Okay.
Yes.
For 16-year-olds. Okay, great. Okay, then the
Hasn't
other
passed yet, but it is something that our youth working group is very passionate about.
I see. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay. And then the other is on the delay of getting all these votes in at the end.
Mhm.
Well, isn't that, I mean, in the videos that I've seen on TV of the past several elections, it seems that that's a good way to like add votes in that shouldn't be there because it's open for that long.
No, because nothing that is postmarked past election day gets counted,
I see.
right? So
Okay.
nothing gets counted before election day.
I see.
And the delay is not, oh, I forgot to vote, or, I think now I can add in a vote because somebody told me that so-and-so is ahead and I want somebody else to win. No, you can't mail your ballot in on Wednesday or Thursday and have it count.
I see.
Your ballot has to be postmarked no later than election day. And we recommend to people, don't wait for the last minute. Post office is weird.
All right.
Get
Well,
your
listen,
mail ballot in advance.
Well-
It's no different than voting, than early voting, right? Nothing is counted until after the close of polls on election day. So there's no way to figure out, oh, I could run out and get another 100 people to vote one way or the other. Doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you for that. All right,
Yeah.
thank you for that. And what about voter ID? Can we get that in there?
We are not in favor of voter ID at Common Cause. So,
All right, that's weird.
Is
When
that,
you want to make sure
we-
who's voting is voting.
Susan, I know that President Trump had recommended that. What is the status of that?
the status is it does not exist in New York in the form of your signature ID. You certify under penalty of perjury that you are who you say you are. And what we have seen, for instance, in Kansas in 2010, they passed a voter ID law and they repealed it because they disenfranchised so many people.
Especially,
Really,
right,
people don't it's a surprising number of people,
don't,
particularly older people, don't have a certified birth certificate. If you're born in New York City, you probably can get a certified birth certificate. But what if you're born in some rural small county that doesn't respond to your mail request? You're going to fly out there to try and get your birth certificate? And 25% of the population does not have a passport. So the idea of, oh, well, everybody has the requisite ID, in Kansas, middle of the country, very red state, they found that was not the case. They were disenfranchising their voters and they repealed that law.
okay, good to know.
So off the topic, but happy to clarify
No,
that.
Glad,
So
no, we do.
there were others who had questions.
Yeah, we do voter reform in this task force, so all these are helpful. Let's see, Michelle, you have your hand up. Kevin, please unmute.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Sherry. A couple of questions and then a comment. The ranked choice voting is within the candidates who are existing in that primary because we do not have open primaries, correct? So it's within that primary. What happens to the independents? For example, this year in the mayoral race, we have 2 independent candidates. So and there's no primary for independents as far as I know.
Primaries have to qualify through petitioning to get on the general ballot.
But how do you group them when you're talking about ranked choice voting?
The general is not ranked.
No, but the primary is. So you'll
Right,
have
but the candidates only run in party primaries. So if you're an independent, you're not running in a primary. You're petitioning to get onto the general.
okay. And the ranked choice voting is only in the primary ballot.
Correct.
So those independent candidates are never subject to ranked choice voting.
No, they are not subject to ranked choice voting. That's correct.
All right, that was one question. The other question is, when we talk about voter ID, I believe that President Trump made that a law for federal elections.
No, he did not.
So.
No, he has a executive order, which is not a law.
No, but it's an executive order. So
And
executive order is at the moment, unless it's challenged by the legislature and eventually has to go to the legislature, at the moment, it's the law of the land.
no, and also it's been enjoined. But an executive order is a suggestion to the executive branch what the president wants them to do. It's not a law. Only Congress can pass a law.
I understand, but in the executive branch, who is the them? He and the vice president are the them.
Right, but the federal government does not run our elections. Our states run the elections according to our Constitution.
For federal elections. We'll leave that to another day.
Yeah,
there is no requirement in New York for voter ID, and there will not be.
Obviously, that needs a little further instruction.
No,
I
it
don't know,
needs clarification by
or
the court, which it's
clarification is what I
received,
mean,
which it has
especially to
received.
this group.
Yeah.
As far as, I don't know if Sherry ever plans to take up the age of voting or voter ID. I don't know if you're planning to put those on the agenda at any point in the future. I'm sure many have a lot to say about those and a lot of thoughts, but we have a heavy agenda since we're going to go into the charter. So I'm not going to,
Yeah, we could, well, let's
approach it
talk
now.
about it in the charter discussion. Maybe we can squeeze it in there. All right, so let me,
Okay, all right, thank you. That was my question. Thank you.
okay, Elaine Walsh, Kevin?
Thank you, and thank you for having this session. Question I have.
Yeah.
If you just want to vote for one person, can you put them in 1 and 2?
No.
Does that make a difference?
No, it makes no difference. And we urge people, don't do that.
Okay.
It's called bullet voting. If
Right.
you want to vote for one, just vote for one. If your first choice is eliminated, the fact that you rank them as number 2 doesn't transfer anywhere, right? Remember, it's one vote that transfers when a candidate is eliminated. So your if your first choice is eliminated, then your vote transfers to your second choice. But if your second choice has been eliminated because it's the same person, your vote has lost its power.
And if you vote down, say, for 5 candidates, I'm not quite sure what that means. If your 5th vote, where does that go? Or the 4th? I don't get it.
Okay, so as I said, it's one vote that transfers, right? So there's a really terrific little video, which the Campaign Finance Board has done, which we're going to add to our presentation, that shows not just how you rank, but how the rounds are computed, right? So the way it works is they total up all of the number 1 votes.
Okay.
And they look to see who is the candidate who has the least number 1 votes. That candidate is eliminated. Everybody who voted for that candidate, if they have rankings, their vote transfers to their number 2 choice. And that total for the people who, the transferees, are then increased. And then you look to see who is the candidate with the least number of votes after the transfers. That candidate is eliminated. If you voted for the person who was eliminated first and second, now your third choice, your vote will transfer to your third choice. If all 3 or 4 of your top choices are eliminated, then your vote would transfer to your 5th choice. But if you've chosen candidates who survive into the final rounds, your vote may not transfer at all. And it may never get down to the 5th choice. But your vote is strongest when you do choose all 5 because of the transfer process.
But can you put the same person in all 5 choices?
You could, but it's not getting you anywhere.
No, you can't do that.
And I just wanted to understand. Okay.
Yeah, you're told on the form, do not rank the same candidate more than once.
Okay, and this
The
will be
form's very clear.
okay. And this rank ordering is not only for the mayoral, but also for the city council, borough president, everybody that's city, not state. If there's
Just
an
city, right?
Not the DA.
Okay.
Not the DA, not the judges.
Right.
Any city race that has 3 or more candidates becomes a ranked choice voting election for the primary.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions for Susan? Going once. I'm not seeing anybody. Anybody has, or now we all understand this perfectly? Good. Well, Michelle, did you have another question?
Yeah, I don't know if it comes under your jurisdiction at all, Susan, but does your group have anything to do with writing the ballot initiatives? not the can, I'm talking about what
Uh-huh.
initiative.
We are the people who passed a plain language requirement at the state level.
Okay, but you don't write, your group does not summarize or write or,
We have in the past as an explainer, yes, but not necessarily what would go on the ballot. The Charter Revision Commission has the ability to set the language. And when they decide what measures they want to put in front of the voters, we will be suggesting language to them, but they would have to adopt it.
well, we have a resolution about that as well. And it came out of a discussion because many of us felt that the initiatives as they were written, the propositions suggested a point of view. In other words, they were filled with adjectives rather than, this will improve that, this will make this better, this will do this, rather than simply stating what the information is. So that inherently put a judgment in the language as it was presented on the ballot. And our community board has a resolution suggesting that just facts appear when you're voting on something. Tell us about that thing. Don't describe it with adjectives that express an opinion one way or another.
Susan's certainly agreeing with that. And what she's saying, even if they don't officially do that, when her Common Cause sends out an explanation, it's objective.
Right. And we recommend that the ballot language be no more complex than an 8th grade reading level, and that it describe what a yes vote will accomplish and what a no vote will accomplish, not the legal mechanism for however it's about, but what it's actually designed to do. So keep it factual and keep it about impact and not about this will change the Constitution by removing this comma. That's meaningless to the voters. Let's focus on what really matters to the voters and make the language understandable so people can make an informed choice. So we're with you in that.
Great. So have you had success with that from the time you made that suggestion to the last ballot initiative?
We're still working to get it. The problem was the Board of Elections at the state level, but here in the city, I think we'll have better success.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
All right, I don't see any more questions. Let's everybody remember to vote in the June primary on June 24th. Early voting is June 14th to the 22nd. And Susan, on behalf of Community Board 8, and we were up to 21 people, so you had a nice audience of community members who needed a refresher on how to do this. So thank you so, so much. You make it so clear, and we'll be back in touch in 2 years. Thank you. Thanks so much. All right, that concludes the first part of our program. We're now going to be talking about the two charter revision commissions, one that was commissioned by the city council, and one that was commissioned by the mayor. So that's what we're going to do next. Oh, good. We still have people saying good. I thought everybody would jump off. All right. This is what I wanted to share. I was at a political event. I was at a political event, and I ended up talking to a staff person for the city council commission. And he said to me that since there is a mayor's charter commission, that the city council's recommendation will not be on this November's ballot. And subsequent to that, I was reading an article in the Times. It also said that the city council amendments will not be on this ballot. So I'm making a recommendation that this task force just focus on the mayor's commission. and that further we concentrate on the areas that we had already identified in our resolutions. There were so many different topics like procurement. We've never done anything on that. So I would suggest we don't go there. And then my third comment is that this is also just a preliminary report, the one that they just issued, and then they will be issuing the final recommendations. So I'm kind of torn if we should even bother to comment on this preliminary report, or if we should wait until we have the final. So those were the things I wanted to open for discussion. So let's do Alita. Hello, Kevin.
I'm sorry, I was at a conflicting other meeting. I would like to propose a resolution, and if seconded, I'll speak to it. And the resolution is that we ask the Charter Commission not to release any kind of proposals during August when community boards do not meet.
I'll second it.
Okay. And that's because there is a tendency among city agencies with controversial topics to release their reports or their or to make their recommendations during August when community boards are not here. And we need an opportunity to look at them, even though well, I don't know if the evaluation has changed, whether we're allowed to advocate or only to educate. But in any event, education takes a while. With an early November, there should be an opportunity for everyone to look at this. And so we should have time. Although I guess maybe it doesn't matter in August. They'll release it and there's not much we could do about it anyway. And my second comment is that we should, yes, look at what they're doing now and make any recommendations or objections to it, because I'm sure that it won't have any impact whatsoever since the mayor did his commission last year. We know the only reason he's doing it is because of the city council, but we should be on the record anyway, especially if there's a change in administration, although I don't know why that matters either. Just thinking aloud. So I would say yes, we should talk about this too.
Okay, Michelle.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm throwing it out to hear what other people's opinions are. Yeah.
Two things. Alita, friendly amendment on the resolution. I wonder if we can expand it to July and August, only because it will take whatever month it comes out in. For example, if it came out in July, there would be no way that we could meet to discuss it and end up with commentary.
Right. And they'll be using that time to promote and advertise and
right. So I'm thinking if your resolution can include July and August.
Yeah,
that
that's acceptable.
Time. Okay. I also think we should discuss this because whether or not, and I perused it, I have some comments. Whether or not this,
Michelle, I see Susan has decided to join it. Do you know anything when they expect to release a final report? Yeah. She does. Let's find out.
Yeah, so here's the deal. In order to appear on the ballot in November, they have to have their final decision and language to the Board of Elections by August 5th, which means that they normally make their decisions in July.
Yeah, which is just when
and that's the time frame that they do. Yeah.
Well, all right. So our resolution can stand. Sherry, I don't know if you want to take a vote on that before I make my comments. I'm for evaluating what we have because I think it needs discussion, and the basic subjects are not going to change even when they revise their version, like the ULURP and the suggestion on the voting. So I suggest we comment, but I just want to know, do you want to take a vote if someone calls the question on the resolution before we go on to the discussion?
Sure. Sure, why not?
because that will have
We
nothing
have
to do with the
one-
substance of the discussion.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 board members on. This is only the vote for board members, so.
Right, so if Kevin, who is it,
It
Kevin that's
depends
on?
the committee membership number.
There
Huh?
are more than 6. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7.
Oh,
Doesn't have to be committee members. Can
No,
just
but it
be board-
depends. The quorum is based on the committee membership. So if the committee membership is 25,
how do I have?
I think
Oh,
we
we don't
need
have,
more.
it's not 25. We don't have that on
no,
any.
I'm just using.
Yeah, yeah.
well,
No, I mean, we
Right.
only have a few. Well, I'm on the committee, so
How did you get 7? Well, I have John, Michelle,
I
Judy,
count 7 also. You and you.
me, Todd. Who else?
Sahar.
Sahar,
Sahar,
I have Sahar, John, Michelle, Judy, Sahar, me, and Todd. Who else?
me,
Oh,
Michelle.
Alita. I didn't add Alita when she joined. Okay,
so can I just say, call the question then?
sure, of course. All right, so restate the resolution, please.
That there be no public release of the Charter Commission proposals during July or August.
All right, but Susan said it has to be
Well, it could be in June.
but by August 5th to Board of Elections. All right. All right, all community board members, I guess just raise your hand if you're in favor of the resolution.
We'll do who's opposed. That's what we usually do.
Okay, who's opposed to the resolution? Anybody?
Raise your virtual hand if you're opposed.
I don't see anybody opposed. All right, so that passed.
So it carries. Okay. So I'll make some comments now. I'll comment on the ULURP because that seems to be a big part of this, and the changes that they could make to that or to any of the zoning is very, very impactful on each community, and is very important protocol to Community Board 8 in particular. So as I perused it, I could see that one of their concerns that we may want to address, aside from assuring that there's always community input and community board input in the whole ULURP process, but one of the issues that I can see that can cause them to want to change some of this is there seems to be a big disparity between, let's say there's a big development that's going to have 400 units and a small development that's going to have 20. And the ULURP process for each of those is the same.
Yeah.
So that discourages and makes it sometimes unaffordable or unreasonable or more difficult for smaller developers, not these big mega developers that have the resources, the staff, the money and everything to go through a full ULURP for a big project. So I think we ought to talk about that and how to address it, because from what I read, I think they're going to address it.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to address it in a way that cuts the community board out, because even if it's a very, very small project, the community board should still have some say. And one of the things they're talking about is like a panel, some kind of a panel that would jump in. I think they call them administrators. Administrators. So there's an implication here that an administrator would jump in and then make the decision on a smaller, and they don't define smaller and bigger.
Yeah.
So when they talk about it, they're just talking about smaller, and then in the final draft, they will have to define how many units or what that means, but they don't here. And we may want to weigh in on that. Maybe we have an idea of what that size should be. But to my mind, even if it's smaller I still don't want to see the community board
Yeah, don't want.
eliminated.
Yeah, so let me just share, I also picked out on ULIP that they're saying that ULIP should not be replaced. That was one comment. And then secondly, about that they wanted to have for adjustments for simpler projects, that they should have categories of projects to streamline the ULIP process with local input and democratic accountability. Yeah, so I think we could do a resolution on one resolution on that we agree this should be a streamlining as long as the community board continues to have input. How does that?
Let me ask you something. They don't define streamlining, just like they don't define smaller projects.
No.
So I'm asking you, and I have not thought this through well enough. That's why I'm asking you. Is it here we have a ULIP where first it's the community board, then it's the borough president, it's 60 days and another 30. Then it's the council, another however many. In other words, they are consecutive. For the smaller projects yet to be defined, is it possible? Would it work? Can you see any reasonableness to make these processes run concurrently? Is that possible?
Well, doesn't
make any sense?
I would hope that the borough president takes the input from the community board in his evaluation.
But maybe they can all run concurrently, but stop short of a few days. In other words, instead of having to come up with your decision 30 days or 60 days later, can you study the project at the same time the community board is studying it?
And then
get their report, and then just a few days later, not another 30 or another 60. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to kaleidoscope it rather than eliminate anyone in the process. If it's possible. I don't know if it makes any sense.
Let me hear what Alita has to say. Kevin, can you leave Michelle unmuted? We've been through this. Alita,
I would suggest the language that the community board's involvement in land use should be the same or stronger than it is now. However, stronger should be defined. Village Preservation came out with a report today about the failures of the Soho NoHo rezoning, which I followed and testified about actually, and it was supposed to generate more affordable units and make Soho NoHo more diverse, and it's failed according to Village Preservation, and some people might have ideological differences with Village Preservation, but what's happened is that there has been no affordable housing, not even any market rate housing. It's solely, I understand, it's solely luxury housing that is being built. So they're managing to get what they want with these so-called rezonings for the benefit of affordable housing. They're looking at doing the same thing, which will decimate the Garment District. It's called Midtown South. And I'm just really concerned. I don't think we should tinker with it and try and kaleidoscope it, Michelle. It will only work against us because the real estate forces in this city, as we all know, are really, really strong. And by eliminating community boards, which is the same effect as
I didn't say that.
Community, you said kaleidoscope. You said do something so they're close to running concurrently or simultaneously. I'm just concerned that any tinkering will be used by the real estate industry to benefit itself or by the administration if it favors the real estate industry, which they really all do, because that was the purpose of term limits of community boards, was to strengthen the mayor's power and eliminate community opposition. ULIRP is already broken. ULIRP already doesn't work, and that's with community board input. input, because everyone meets with the city planning department first. They get their go-ahead from city planning. The mayor wants the project, and it just goes regardless of what anybody has to say, except maybe a city council member. So I think we should not mince words and just be very strong in speaking out against any change to community board, and maybe even saying that community board should have an actual vote, not just advisory, but an actual.
Well, we tried that, yeah.
I
Yeah,
know,
that didn't
but it
pass our
doesn't.
board.
You know what? The people say the same things 100 times, and then finally everyone else believes them, or it's not new and it's not shocking anymore. So if we keep saying community board should be treated as having a real
No,
voice.
the board didn't approve it. Our board.
Oh, they didn't approve it? I don't remember
They
that.
didn't approve
Okay.
it.
Well,
They
that's
didn't
right.
approve it.
Oh, no,
Um,
I take that
they
back.
said
Okay.
Here's my, here's my
We're not
concern, and then I'll be
elected.
quiet because Meryl wants to talk, but let me just respond before I lose the thought. My concern, Alita, is they're going towards, I don't disagree with anything you've said. You also have to realize that we're volunteers dealing with a commercial entity. When you're a developer and you're going to build a building that's 450 feet high, you've got your ducks in a row. You have your financing. You've already spoken to everybody in the administration. You've already examined everything, and you've started doing that 5 years at least before it ever even becomes known to the community board, when it comes in the press, and then all of a sudden the public finds out about it, and then we try to play catch up. My concern here, and take it under consideration in our discussion, is I'm afraid they're going to go to an administrator. And if they go, because that's what they're talking about here, and if they go to an administrator, we're going to be cut out. So let's just bear that in mind in our discussion. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, so then we should ask for community boards to remain with the limited power that we have, and not alter community input, and not
Yeah.
have it in the guise of a group appointed by the mayor or by Rebney or by anybody else, because their points of view will be firm. There's a movement to get rid of environmental reviews and streamline that whole process too. Anytime, to me now, they say streamline, it just means get rid of anything that protects the public and makes it more.
No, but here they're looking for a way to have an equal process for smaller developments. That's what we're talking about here. For some landlord that's going to build an 8-story building, and he has to go through the same ULIP. That's the issue. It's very costly, and they don't have the same resources. Anyway,
They
our
still have
ideas
more
are out there. Let
resources.
Meryl go ahead,
They
Sharon.
still have more resources than we have.
Of course.
And that the community has.
Meryl, Kevin, can you unmute Meryl Brodsky, please?
I'm trying to unmute. Okay, thank you very much. I want to echo what Michelle said. I think it's very important to have a stand from the community boards about our advisory role, whether it be committee or full board members and so forth, particularly on ULURP. However, in their process of trying to change and expedite things that go through the large developments in 90 days to 70 days or 60 days or no days, I think we should not necessarily do that, because it'll fall, the little guys are going to fall through the cracks. They're going to try to expedite them right off the track. So they'll railroad them. Meantime, let them take their, dawdle and take their time. And if they can't afford it this month, maybe they'll have enough money from the proceeds of their rentals, etc., to pay for the ULURP lawyers next month. But I thoroughly agree that we need to keep the little guys, particularly in an age of conversion right now. The city of yes, as Alita addressed. So good point. And we've got to hold our own on that ULURP process. It's all we have for the time being. So thank you.
By the
Ta-da!
way, just some information, Sherry, because I don't know if everybody knows this on this call. There is a lawsuit against the city on the city of yes. And there are about 50 plaintiffs on that lawsuit.
Wow.
And it's public, so you can look it up.
What type of plaintiffs are they?
A lot of the people from Queens who were badly affected with that accessory dwelling unit, people from Staten Island, people from all over the 5 boroughs.
But not
and also saying that it's not yielding affordable housing, which is true. they turn the whole city upside down and they're not getting, they're
Affordable.
tearing down more affordable housing than they're building. But there is a lawsuit, and I mean, it's public, so I guess I could send it to the office and he could send it to the committee. I don't know.
There's
But
no
it's out
affordable,
there. You can find it.
sorry, there's no affordable housing because not one affordable housing unit is required by City of Yes,
Correct.
right? So that's why
That's a
they're
great
rushing.
point. I think there should be lots of affordable housing, particularly in the areas that can well afford affordable housing, insofar as they've got the density availability via their land plots, like, for example, Bushwick and parts of Brooklyn and parts of Bronx, and I guess there are still undeveloped areas of Manhattan that can accommodate densely populated, new converted buildings.
Yeah, but the theory of the City of Yes that it was predicated on is they wanted every neighborhood, every community to participate in that. Their theory being that you would spread it around. So they didn't really consider the individual, the density of each of the communities.
Well, they had some formula of the AMI at being 30%. I think they're going to have to make it 50% in order to get 10%, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's a little bit, at this point, undeveloped, and who knows what will happen when the mayor, that was his baby, does not win a second term. So it's in somebody else's court. But I think it's a great, very important right now, because conversion, it's not just the community boards and the politics. There's a need to change the type, the status, the zoning, et cetera.
Yeah, but the people out in the outer boroughs where it's zoned for single family homes, they don't want an apartment building on their corner. They didn't sign up for that. And that's why they're in the lawsuits. But that's for another day. But I just thought that you should all know that there is a lawsuit out there.
I think there'll be several of them. Thank you. If you have copies of it, maybe we should take a look at it at some point. Thanks.
All right, anybody else on the committee want to comment? Because at this point, I'm hearing we're going to have one resolution on no reports during July and August. A second one that if, let's say, the ULUP process is quote unquote streamlined, that community boards should still maintain the same level of review.
Well, I'm worried about using the word streamline since it's not defined anywhere. It's going to be up for them to decide that definition. So I don't want to be on the record of supporting streamlining when I don't know what it is. I would rather make a positive statement.
Well, give me a positive statement.
Well, I'd like input.
Or get it to me. You know, you guys keep on dumping all this on me to do, so I need help.
No, it's not a matter of you writing or doing anything. It's a matter of us at this meeting as a committee, putting language together.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I'm just voicing that I don't think, I know they're going to jump to this. Because it's mentioned too significantly, you know.
Yeah, no,
I don't want to come up with something. So I don't want us to be sort of left, you know, in the dust here.
How about if there's any change in the ULIP process, community board should still have the same level of review?
That makes sense.
And city council members too.
Well, that's the other thing they talked about in here was deference, member deference.
Yeah, member, that's saying, and that's keeping it from the affordable housing being built, but they can't get. That's not written in the city. It's not in.
No, it's just the way it works. It's kind of a custom and practice in the city council.
Well, but it has fallen short. For the past 17 years, it says, and I think with the blood center, we were the first ones that didn't get our member deference.
But there were other reasons for that.
I know. I was going to just finish that sentence by saying because there were
nobody liked him.
I'll just say other reasons. Yes. However, there in this paper there were arguments for and against member deference. So where member deference used to protect the communities somewhat, because that member was elected by the community and so was sensitive to their input and opinion, if they don't pay the same regard to member deference, then that no longer becomes a spokesperson for the community that we can count on.
Yeah, well, we can't do
So,
anything about that, so.
but I think the language saying that the community board role should remain the same
All right, we can do
is a
that.
good stopgap.
And I think the city council, because the city of Yes has cut out the city council
And the
and
city
community
council,
boards
okay.
and community
City council,
boards in many
Oh.
provisions that we just never discussed because the language was buried in the in the text that they did not summarize that part of it. So I think we should call for city council and community board, because they're the closest to local neighborhoods that there is in the city, should remain as is. And what they're trying to do seems to be to remove any kind of local input and just do whatever the real estate industry wants. And I think we need to stand up in every aspect on this. And at least it will be out there, and hopefully it will be picked up either by other community boards or by the press or by something, and people in the community will
All right, I need a community board and city council review of development
review of any land use proposals.
of
Should
any
remain the same or have to.
proposals should remain the same. All right, I just,
You know,
Should
when we
have the
ask for the
same decision, no, it's not remain the same. You need something, I think, more specific. Have the same decision-making authority as exists now, and should be as integrated into the any land use review process
position
as they are now, as they are currently.
as has now and be integrated into the development process.
As it is currently. I'll help you with the language if I can, Sherry. I'm not a land use lawyer.
Is currently, yeah, no, I mean, we have a tough board, that we have.
Well, that's open New York too, I think, but that's another conversation.
I think they miss their argument when we had asked in our other resolutions
Have more power, and they said
to have a percentage of the vote like some other entities do. Their argument in opposition, and I couldn't be at that meeting, but I watched it. Their argument in opposition was that the community board is not elected.
right,
And therefore it didn't deserve to have weigh in with a percentage of authority.
right.
However, the argument against that is the city planning isn't elected, they're appointed. The Landmarks Commission isn't elected, they're appointed. The point is, we elect our representative.
Who should represent?
So we have the same amount of authority. We're appointed by the borough president and our local council people, just as the commission is appointed by the mayor, who is elected. We're appointed by the borough president, who was elected.
All right, but we're not doing that resolution again.
Well, I'm just saying, we can't do it again unless somebody who voted against it wants to bring it up again. But if you can't get anybody to do that, we can't.
I'm sure they're not. All right.
But that doesn't mean that we can't put it in this resolution again and argue it. I don't know that. We should have a consensus of opinion on that.
I can't imagine Valerie is going to let that took so long. The other thing that I know Ed is up in, he has a big case he's arguing in Albany. He wanted us to talk about in the voting area that we should support the city election should be in the same time as the state and federal. That I think is a good idea. In other words, we have off-year elections in the city, but the state and federal are in the other year. It would save money, and I think participation would be much greater. What do
Is
you?
that the same argument as having it on even
Yeah,
years?
even years.
He's against that.
No, he wanted that. No, he told me to bring it up as he
Yeah,
wa-
but I think he's against it. But I'm not sure. I'll voice my opinion on it. That is what I thought. I
No,
had a conversation about it. I may have misunderstood.
no, because that's what we have now. We have it we have it on odd years. No, he wanted it changed to be to even years.
I think he's against that. But as I say, I won't swear to it. I thought I had that
Okay,
conversation.
well, I'll certainly
But
check.
I'll say that I'm against it. So let me just speak for myself.
You're
I-
against changing the elections to even years?
Yeah, that they're all at one time. I'm opposed to that. It
Why?
may be less costly. However, I think that the electorate will then be over bombarded
That's true.
with too many candidates spending too much money. The advertising costs, election costs for media will go way up because of the competition. If you had, look how many candidates we have for mayor, for example, this year.
You know,
And if all those elections and all our city council people and all our whatever are on the same year as the governor,
Ugh.
I think it's too many candidates vying for money and for public attention.
that's a good.
So I don't think it's a good idea.
But do you even know who's running for public advocate? I don't think I have any.
Well, there's a big move to remove that position.
Oh, and then controller is the one that Mark Levine's running for. And well, we know borough presidents and city council. Yeah, but public advocate, I don't think I've seen anybody.
Well, is his term up? Maybe he's running again.
Yeah, that could be.
That's Jermaine Williams, but now
Yeah.
he's in a lot of trouble.
What did he do?
A lot of trouble with the mortgage on his house
Oh,
and defaulting or whatever. I am not following it all that
who are the
closely, but
candidates
he's
for
got
public
problems.
advocate in this year's New York election? I'm asking, sorry, she'll tell me. What happened to it?
It may just be him.
Could be. Who's the candidate for public advocate in New York City's this year's election?
Okay, I found this on the web for who is the candidate for public advocate in New York City this year's election.
Oh.
Check it out.
Jack something or other, and his Indian name it dropped out for controller, and he's running for public advocate. All right, in any case, I was just looking.
And then would that include the judges and all that?
Well, the judges already are on even years.
Okay,
No, these are the only.
all right.
Well,
I like it. I think
you
it's
like,
better
all right,
separate.
fine. I'm not looking for us. I'm sure Valerie would be very happy if we come in with two. So I only have two resolutions. Is that what we want?
Well, do you want a resolution on the election? Why don't we hear how people feel about it? Who can vote, who are on this call?
All right. Judy, you have an opinion?
No opinion whatsoever
Okay.
on that. I would vote on the two we have on the floor and that's it.
Okay, that's good. Meryl, what say you?
Question. I thought that the change in the election year was only good for small towns and cities outside of New York City. And so far as I know, is it Humani Williams who has the problem? I thought it was Letitia James having a mortgage
both.
problem.
It's both.
Okay.
She has it. Yeah, no, he has it with his house in Brooklyn.
Got it. I wonder why that happened anyway. I
Yeah,
think it's not affecting New York City on the elections. I think that's how I understand that the
oh, I
governor.
think Trump just dragged that found,
I don't think it's
the
going to
Bishop
affect
James.
the election, but I'm just saying that for the public advocate,
Yeah, let me
I
see.
mean, it's just, we're just talking about whether or not they should all be in the same year. And
Yeah.
I'm
I
just
thought-
saying,
Does anybody know, does it include the city of New York in the same year elections?
does
I
it
thought
say
it was
what?
What?
The city of New York, I'm sorry. I thought the law does not require the city of New York to be included.
No, we're saying, should it be? That's the question.
One of the proposals in the charter is to make all the elections in the same year an even year.
Okay, so that's the city charter. That's this city charter, because
Yeah,
there
well,
is a
that's what
law
we're talking-
floating around now for, that says that there will probably be a law that takes the smaller, densely populated areas of 10,000 or less, small cities, villages, and towns, and makes them subject to the 1-year election rule. But it does not include to date New York City, so far as I know. But now you're
Well,
telling me
this
that
does,
the
but it
charter-
does in the chart, in the
The
charter
charter
proposal.
amendment
It
is
does.
up for grabs. I think that's great. I think it's good to mention it, and I have no idea what position I would take on that. There are arguments both ways. It may be a little tough for the Board of Elections to get it all done in 1 year. I'll say that much.
Well, they're
It's a
terrible.
lot of work, affidavits and absentees and military counts and so forth. A lot of work.
There's a lot of people running for public advocate.
Jerry,
Yes.
it's Judy. I just want to make a comment. I agree with Michelle. I don't think we should be voting for everything in the same year. It could just be too much.
Okay. All right, you want to know who's running for public advocate, as long as we're,
Sure.
all right, Jermaine Williams,
So he is running again.
Jennifer Jazz Kumar, a Queens Assemblywoman, Theo Chino, a Bitcoin entrepreneur, Marty Dolan, a financial advisor and former congressional candidate for New York 14, and Christian Matthew, a pastor and gun violence advocate who has filed paperwork. Under the Republicans, Gonzalo Duran, a nonprofit CEO. It's only one candidate. So yeah, so they're right. Oh, we have
They
people.
all better get the word out because they only have a month and nobody ever heard of them,
Yeah. Well, we know Jeanette,
except for
Jermaine
Jermaine.
Williams. Well, he's hoping that that Adams will get thrown out and then he takes over as but I don't think so anymore. Now that Trump has given Adams a green card.
Well, there's more information out there this week, though. They found some other things that are problematic for Adams, so he's going to have some more arguments to make. But that's a whole other story. He's running as an independent. Cuomo has a lot of baggage. He's running as an independent.
All right.
So we'll see.
All right. So we have the two resolutions. I will.
So what are the two resolutions?
One on the no report during July and August. On the second.
Well, we voted on that one.
Yeah. All right. Oh, you want to vote on it? And the second.
What do you want? What's the second one?
The second one is on your lip, that the community board should retain.
Yes. Okay.
All
Call
right.
the
So let's.
question.
I'll call a question on that. All right. Okay, everybody's in favor of calling the question. All right. Let's take a vote on the resolution. It will be community board and city council review for any land use proposal should maintain the same decision authority and should be integrated in the development process as it is currently structured. Obviously, I'll clean it up. But all right, so that's the second resolution. Are anybody opposed to that? No. All right, so those will be the two resolutions. And then how can we find, Alita, you think we're only going to be able to do education anyway, whenever what's on the ballot? We're not going to get.
I don't know. The last time it was the opinion of Gail Brewer's legal staff. This time,
You
the borough
couldn't
president,
advocate.
legal staff, maybe there's a new opinion because I, for one, don't understand how the city council and mayor's office could advocate, but the borough president's office could not.
All right, Kevin, can you take that on as an assignment? The question is, once there are amendments to the charter on the ballot, can the community board have an opinion and advocate one way or another? In the past, we have not been allowed to. So can you reach out to legal counsel and get us an answer on that?
Okay. Yeah.
Do you understand what?
The borough president's office.
Yeah, the borough president's
They
office.
oversee the community boards.
I mean, because like the question was on for term limits, we weren't allowed to advocate. So, of course,
We had informational forums.
it never was any. Yeah. All right.
Can
Look.
I have a straw poll on the election thing? Can we do a straw poll, see what this committee thinks, and then decide if we want to propose a resolution?
You and Judy voted no.
I would vote no too.
All right, then we're not going to do it, and I'll.
No, but then we can vote. That can be our resolution.
Why? But they didn't.
That we want the elections to remain as they are.
Was that in the report? I don't remember.
Yes, I think, yes, to move them. Let me see what I have here.
I don't have any notes on that. It was only 100 pages, so.
Even year elections, here it is, because I printed what was registered. Areas to explore. Local in New York City are generally held in odd-numbered years that don't coincide with other statewide or national races. Their argument is because it yields lower turnout. Turnout in the last 3 generals for city of all registered voter turnout. All right. So what they're saying is they'll get a bigger turnout if they're all in 1 year. So they do address it. It's in here.
Okay.
So I would like to propose a resolution.
Okay.
And then in the whereases, tell you the reasons. So the resolution would be that let me see how to phrase this, that the years.
New York City election should remain on odd years.
Right, and the state elections.
We don't have anything to do with state elections. New York City elections should
remain in the odd years. Okay.
Remain in
odd. And the whereas is
odd years. Yeah.
Here's a few whereases. Everybody jump in if you have others. Let me tell you what I can think of is that let me try to phrase this correctly. I know what my thoughts are, that it would be too many candidates in too many different categories vying for public attention, public outreach, advertising dollars, and donations and fundraising, thus inadvertently causing the cost of advertising to go up because of all the competition and whatever anybody else can think of in terms of, and what did you say, Meryl, that and also you didn't think the Board of Elections could
handle it
easily handle.
The Board of Elections would have a real nut on their hands. They very often, because it's back-to-back elections.
The burden on Board of Elections.
It takes 3 weeks to do to consummate the election votes for military, which has to come in from places like Australia, all over the world.
All right, so that's a good point to put that in there.
Afghanistan, for example, we had a major issue about 5 years ago on that. And just typically the counting affidavits, going to the court battles.
I said
So everything
extra burden on Board of Elections.
No, this is the Board of Elections for the city and the state, okay? Now, we are indirectly affected by state elections, but I kind of agree that it would be onerous, even if it's right in theory that they're not going to be able to do it, which is one of the main reasons they have the ranked choice. Back-to-back elections for less important elections are too costly, too timely, and simply can't be done. They figured out that they could not get staff and machines together. The level of technology is not. Elon Musk has not done his magic yet for the Board of Elections in the city of New York.
And also you would have to have multiple ballots.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because you wouldn't put the city ballot on the state ballot.
Too confused.
That's a very good point, and that's the kind of thing Board of Elections would have to argue back and forth, and it will take the commissioners at the board. Anybody can go to their meetings as well if you have nothing else to do. Take a lot of time, and we're behind with the machines in the state of technology. So,
and also locations. If you're increasing the volume that much all at one time.
They have sites available. They try to keep them open, which is another major concern for Board of Elections. Will they have enough sites with early voting? Should they cut back early voting if they're going to have it in 2 years? If they're just going to have it in 1, should they expand early voting? Many.
So come up with a couple of things.
So if you write it up, Sherry, and you send it to me, I'll try to remember and tweak it also.
Okay.
And Alita wants to do it as well. Wording right.
Yes, I'm sure she did. All right, that's what we'll do. We'll have the 3 resolutions.
Okay, so that's the resolution. So let's vote on it. Call the question.
Call the question. All in favor of this, that we keep it odd years. Anybody opposed? No. All right, all the votes were unanimous because Kevin.
We only have 4 people from the board left. Is that 5 people with John McClement? Is that enough to vote on these resolutions at this moment?
Our street fairs committee has 2 people.
No, but that's because the committee membership.
Well, how many people are on this committee?
I don't know. Maybe
it's enough.
Well, let's count them.
This task force has 4 people on it.
So then we're enough.
3, yeah.
Yeah, and people just join as the topic interests them. All right, so the full board is next Wednesday. So
John had his hand up, Sherry. John McClement. He took it down, but maybe you want.
John,
I was going to point out that there were only 4 or 5 people present, but you recognize that anyway. So that was all I want to.
Sherry, are you going to have another voting? Are you going to have another one of these meetings or no?
Not well, it depends on, not before the board meeting next week.
No. I mean.
Well, it depends on what we have to do when they finally maybe after the report is out, I guess we'll have to figure out.
How are we going to handle it if they don't acknowledge our resolution not to put anything out in July and August, and it does come out in August? How are we going to handle this?
Gee, I guess we won't.
So maybe get a meeting on the calendar in September in anticipation before September fills up.
Meeting in September. Yeah, but I think it's going to depend on if we can advocate. If we can't advocate,
then maybe there should be some other educational thing, the way the elections puts out pro and con.
All right. Very few community boards do this. We're the one.
I know. Well, I hate bringing this up again, I'm sure you're all sick of this, but when I was chair and we had the Charter Commission Task Force, we did do an educational forum for the whole of the community boards. Yeah. So we met it at Art and Design in CB6, and we did it with all of them. We also met in August to be able to either make resolutions or look at what they were doing or something. The problem, if we don't do it, and when even with education, we're not aggressive about it, all that's out there is the city stuff in favor of it, promoted by the administration, and that's bad. And especially if they don't heed our suggestion that they use neutral language, because everything is written where you look stupid for saying no, as in, well, common sense says yes.
Yeah.
And so we need to be out there with all the reasons to vote no, even if we include the reasons to vote yes too, because otherwise there will be no reasons to vote.
Well, that's why it all depends. That's how they get everything passed on the ballot.
Exactly.
Because if you don't know anything around the topic and you read it, it says, oh, well, this looks like
Exactly.
paradise.
Exactly. So that's why we could be the only people saying vote no. I mean, not vote no, but these are the reasons to vote no, because the administration will never do that and nobody else will do it either.
Well, I think when we see a ballot initiative, we really have to make a big stand about the wording at the time that we see it and really make us think about it, because it's awful. Everything, they just put a positive spin on everything. Is this 16-year-olds voting a real thing? Is this really going to be proposed somewhere?
I don't know. I hope not. I don't know. Okay. All right. Thanks. I think we're good.
All right, then move to adjourn.
Yeah. All in
Thank
favor?
you.
Aye.
All right, thanks very much,
Bye.
Sherry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll get something out to you. All right.
Have a good night, everybody. Have a good week. Bye.